Hi everyone, welcome to RPA Explorers channel.
In this video, we are going to see about script component in ServiceNow RPA, which helps us to write and execute any custom Visual Basic scripts. So let's see how you can implement this in Studio. And also it accepts some input parameter, which gives us the output in the type we want. So now let's go to the Studio and filter with script under toolbox, and you have two scripts, one which is from connector and the one which is the component, and we are going to concentrate on the component which is just the script. So let's drag and drop this. And also, in case you want some specific connector to work on VB scripts and C sharp, you do have that. For example, you can filter with connector and you can see C sharp connector and this VB.NET connector, which can be used to write the specific scripting as well. So now let's see how to use the script component, okay, which has the control input and control output as every component have, and it have only the data output. So now to provide your data input, you have to click on this icon. So once you open the editor, you can see some script editor, and below you can see your errors after you write your script. And we have some parameter tab which you can just make use of it by clicking on this plus icon. If your script accepts more than one parameter, you can give all the input parameter here and you can choose the type as well. So for example, you may have some integer parameter and then string parameter. You have to do is just you have to rename and you can provide your variable. And the below one, which is return type, in which you can choose the return type according to the script you written. So now let's see how you can implement this, and before which I'm just going to click on OK to show you the control input actually. Okay, so let me, and also you can see the script component. As soon as I click on some parameter, you can see all the parameter from here, for which you can pass the static value as an input, or you can pass some input value from the previous executed component as well. And let's click on OK. For this example, we are going to use some text file which I already have in my project folder. So now let's open the input text, and I have copied some script documentation to this notepad for this example. So okay, we have 6 lines here. So the first script would be counting the number of lines in the given text file. So let's see how you can count the lines. I'm going to close this and let's switch back to the studio, and let's click on this. Let's pass the input parameter, which will be the input file path. So let's rename it to input file path, and you can give any meaningful name to your variable, and this would be a string, so I'm going to change it to string. And let's start writing your script. So I'm going to declare the variable. So in VB.NET we have declare in memory, so I'm going to pass the file path as a string. So here you can directly provide the path, or you can provide your variable. As I have my variable, let's pass a variable over here, which is variable file path. And the next step is to validate if the given file exists or not. So we are going to validate by using if. So if file, so we are going to exist if the file path or not. And the next step is to count the variable, for which we are going to loop through each and every lines in the text file, and then we are going to increment it. So there may be different ways to count it, but for this example we'll use some counter variable, and for each line we'll increment the counter. So I'm going to implement the counter variable as well. So let's see, counter as integer, and we'll provide the default value as well, which is 0. So next step is to read all lines and loop through each and every line. So first let's read the text file. So the next step is to loop through it, for which I'm going to use for each line as string. So every time it loop through, we have to increment the counter. So let's increment the variable to 1. Else we are going to increment the counter as 0. So we are going to end the for loop. At the end we'll return the counter. So our scripting is ready, and also we are returning the counter, which is of type integer. So let's change the return type to integer, and let's quickly validate this too. You can see that error is also empty and we have the successful message as well. For example, if case you have some error, let's see that randomly will remove this and we'll validate it. Also you can see the errors from here which you can rectify it. So I'm just re-implementing it. So click on validate. So currently what we are doing is we are just reading the file path which comes from this input string, and we are initializing the counter variable to 0, and we are validating if the file exists or not. If it exists, then we are reading the lines and looping through each lines. For each line we are incrementing the counter. File doesn't exist, we are making the counter as 0, and then we are just returning the counter variable. So let's validate it, and I'm going to click on OK. And you can see that we have input file path which you can pass it from other component, or you can directly pass it as a static value as well. For now I'm just going to use a static value. So let's go to port properties, let's click on static, and now let's pass the path which is input text. As I have my text file in the project folder itself, I'm giving only the text file name which is this, and let's click on OK. Display the output. Run the process. And also if you see the total number of lines in the text file is 6, so let's open the text file. So if you see we have 5 lines and procedure is the 6th line, so we have this now. And also let's try to add some empty lines or new lines here, and now let's see the output. And also in this time we are just going to transform the data. So let's click on OK, and now let's run the process. Let's see the Excel input now. So total we have 6, and this is the 7th line, and this empty line is the 8th line. So this is the expected output now. And now let's remove all the lines in the text file and let's see the output. So now let's run the process, and now, and if you see the total number of line which is 0, as we don't have any lines in the input text file. So this is the expected one. Let's see the second scripting, in which we are going to concatenate all the lines from the given Excel, for which we'll just place the input file back. So let's save this, and now I'm going to use the same scripting to replace the second code as well. So let's just click on this, and this time the output would be of string, as we are going to print the concatenated lines together. This time instead of counter we are going to have like read lines something, which is going to be a string. So let's replace this, and also we are going to use the same. If the file exists, then we are going to read all the lines. We add something called concatenated lines as string, and we are going to use a string concatenate method which is string join. Validate. Okay, so we are not using for method, so let's remove the next, and let's click on validate. So it is compiled successfully, and also the return type is of type string, so we have just made the changes as well. I'll click on OK, and also here we have to change, right? So I'm just disable this. Let's click on OK, and let's run the process now. And if you notice, we have all the lines from the input text which is separated by comma. So we have comma for all the steps. In order to differentiate it better, I'll just add some 3 spaces. I'll click on validate, and let's run the process again, so that we can see the difference in the output. And if you see, we have the 3 spaces before each line, and it has printed in the expected format. Now I have removed all the lines from the text file, which is empty now. Let's run the process and see the output now. As we don't have any lines in the input file, after we concatenate also, what we have is this, so which is the expected output. And as a final debugging, we are going to remove the file itself from the project folder, and then let's see the output. Okay, I'm going to remove the text file. So let's run the process now. which is empty now. So like I'll open the code and we can see it. So only if the text file exit, it will go over here. If the text file is not there, then what it return is just the concatenated line, which is always the empty by default. So now in order to see the output, maybe we'll just go with some 0 or something, and then let's click on OK, and then we'll just start the process again. So if you see now the output, which is 0, as the file doesn't exist, it went to the false block and it has printed the value which is in the else block. So this is how you can make use of this script. About the script component in ServiceNow, in which you can write your custom VB.NET script just by passing your input path. You can return your data in the type you want. So, and in the coming videos we are going to explore more components and connector. And thank you so much for watching this video till then.